Hi, Lynn Tucker Carnivore here with a discussion about what we feed our dogs. This is my very first dog. I'm leaving her name out because that's an option for account security questions for many of us. She used to eat Gaines burgers. You remember those? We thought they were the best quality at the time. They ended up being the fake meat of their day. She died of kidney failure one morning while sitting in a chair after a morning walk at age 13. What if I'd known about carnivore feeding then? How much longer would she have lived and been healthier? Then there's James. Yes, I named him after James Bond. Sean Connery, of course. He looked handsome and he looked sophisticated, so he got his name. Anyway, poor James had back issues. Many dachshunds do, as they jump, do stairs, kids play too hard with them, and they have a natural need to basically do whatever they want to do that's bad for their backs. James had bones fused, narrowed, and calcified discs, and he took prednisone post-surgery and occasionally throughout his life for pain. He died an assisted death at 18, when all the joy had left him, and he acted like a zombie, needing constant assistance to do all normal bodily functions. What if I'd known about carnivore feeding then? How much longer would he have lived without pain and been healthier? Moving on to Kellyanne. Yes, I like naming my dogs people names. She developed dementia, pre-Cushing's, and would sleep in the day and be up all night whining. She also had horrible digestive issues at the end and didn't defecate for days. She was treated with melatonin and lignans, but died an assisted death at age 16. What if I'd known about carnivore feeding then? How much longer would she have lived and been healthier? Our sweet litter mates, Rocky and Rex. Piebald dachshunds, just the sweetest boys ever. Rocky developed adenocarcinoma of the small intestines. Our vet told us that cancer would quickly spread to his lungs and other organs, and it would be very painful for him to endure. Right after the diagnosis, he began to defecate projectile diarrhea and eventual blood blobs, yet his face looked at us like, "I'll still try to be healthy." He was 13 years old, and his assisted death came 9 months after Kelly's. Rex's assisted death came 74 days later, after a routine dental, where we'd had the expensive and thorough senior blood panel done, and there were no red flags. So the dental and the surgery to take off a couple black growths on his skin was scheduled. It was a long surgery, and when we were finally able to pick him up, the vet tech handed him to me like a baby, 4 paws up in the air, still recovering from anesthesia. That night, he was coughing and gasping for air. Upon our vet's office opening in the morning, we were right there to ask what to do. They kept him throughout the day, trying various remedies, and told us at 5 p.m. that he developed aspiration pneumonia and needed an oxygen cage to see if that would help. We did so, and Rex spent that night in full oxygen. It didn't work. The vet tech there cried with us, telling us that Rex wouldn't make it back to our vet's office if he had even made it that far. The vet tech said Rex was the sweetest little dog he had ever taken care of. What if I'd known about carnivore feeding then? How much longer would he have lived and been healthier? 74 days after Rocky, 9 months before that Kelly, 3 dogs in under a year, holding them during their last moments, and our hearts breaking. They were our children. I went on the internet with a vengeance. I found Dr. Karen Becker and began her raw diet protocol, which brings us to Sammy and eventually Sadie, another rescue. We'd rescued Sammy 10 months prior to that, and he was the only dog left. I started him on Dr. Becker's, what I thought was carnivore, but in reality, it turned out to be a keto version of a species-specific diet I now use. This is Sammy. He is going to be 8 in early May, and other than the 2 weeks from 7 to 9 weeks old that his former owner had him eating, the pretty picture dog food on the bag of the grocery store's brand kibble, and his hair on his tail falling out. He's been on Dr. Becker's keto dog diet and then my carnivore recipe for his whole life. That brings us full circle to Sadie. As close as we can tell, she's 18 plus. We were told that her first 6 years were spent wandering the streets of Tupelo, Mississippi, where she was found and went through the adoption process by a nice older couple. They had her for 7 years. The Mrs. died of cancer 2 years prior, and Mr. was now having to leave town to live in assisted living closer to family in another state. She was given to us at age 13, or so they estimated. She's been eating Dr. Becker's keto version of species-specific diet and now my carnivore version for a total of 5 years. Here's what I feed Sammy and Sadie now. This is what you'll need to start. Snack-sized Ziploc baggies. There's the container I keep the finely ground eggshells in the refrigerator. Next, you'll see packed in water sardines, the bowl that I need to use, stainless steel, some gloves, and the mixer that I use to mix the sardines and the liver, a spatula, something to open the can of sardines with, and the cookie scoop. That's a cookie size as opposed to a melon size or an ice cream size scoop. And then you'll see our protein, which we buy at Costco, which is the 80/20 ground beef. And on top of it, one of the 4 individual packets that come in a 1-pound calf liver bag, and I use one of them, so that equals about a 1/4 pound. These are the snack bags I've counted out. For me, it's usually around 43 bags, which will last me about 10 days at 4 patties, 2 per dog per day. You'll want to open them up first, so that when you're ready, you can just slide the contents in. This is a close-up of the finely ground eggshells I use for a substitute for the bones I'm still too hesitant to give them and hope they don't choke on. Dr. Chafee did a recent video with a veterinarian who said you should get your dogs used to eating chicken from a drumstick or wings, as they need to be used to tearing the meat off the bone and eating the bone. Trouble is, mine aren't, and I'm too concerned with choking. So this is 1 tablespoon, and I use 1.5 tablespoons for my recipe. Next, this is what you'll need to blend, and you'll want to put on those gloves now. I use one of the individual packets of calf liver that come in a 4-pack equaling 1 pound, as I mentioned. So this is a 1/4 pound of calf liver and 1 sardines packed in water, that's important, that you'll need to be able to blend together. I use this little Ninja, but at least you'll see the size of what you're mixing, so you'll know how large of a blender you might already have or you'll need. Since I used to use both sardines and oysters, both packed in water, I may use sardines one time, and then for another batch, I can use a can of oysters for variety. They are both superfoods, according to Dr. Berry. Here's a look at the eggshells and the liver sardines mix that I will use the spatula to blend together in anticipation of adding my protein source, 80/20 ground beef from Costco, the closest I can get to 7 pounds. This is where you'll really need to have your gloves on, as you'll want to grab chunks of the ground beef and put them into the bowl in smaller pieces to eventually mix all these ingredients together much easier. Have you ever made meatloaf? Well, you can use those hand-mixing skills here. Grab from below and roll the mixture up toward the top to do so. North, south, east, west positions in the bowl so it's really mixed up. You can see here, if you look closely, that the eggshells are pretty evenly distributed within this mixture. Now take off your right hand glove, if right-handed, and left if left-handed, to use that hand to scoop up 2 level scoops of the mixture. Take those scoops in your gloved hand to slide the 2 scoops in. Keep doing this for the rest of what's in the bowl. Here's the filled baggies with food. I wait until they're all filled and ready to put in the freezer before I close them. I make them into patties, and that does 2 things. It gets the patty flat for easy storage and most of the air out of the baggie. I put them in our freezer drawer, for me, in an old tennis shoe box, 2 rows of 3 each. For those of you concerned with bacteria or any of the other plethora of things to concern us with, I freeze the protein source, ground beef, for at least a week prior to the 3 days it takes to thaw in my refrigerator before making my dog's food. Then back into the freezer, and I take out 2 to thaw as I need to replace the 2 I've already thawed and now to serve for their meal. That's it. It takes about 60 to 90 minutes to do it all and sterilize the countertops and put the utensils and mixing bowls in the dishwasher for sanitizing as best as possible for the next use. I hope you all learned something. I hope it's helpful, and we'll see you on the next one.